The Seattle Mariners have one big problem on their hands. Find out more in today's video. I know you're probably sitting there like, T, the Mariners have a lot more problems than one, which is very true. But there is one problem that I really want to talk about in today's video, and that problem is injuries. So obviously we know the Mariners have a big ownership problem in letting Jerry and Justin spend, and there has been a lot of empty promises in terms of how much they're going to spend this offseason, and in off seasons previously, they have promised us a lot more than they have given us. But I kind of want to shift our focus because I've been seeing a lot of comments on Twitter about the Mariners' injuries and how the quality of player really isn't there. And to me, I kind of just want to clear the air on where the quality of player lies. So as we know, the three biggest guys that'll have an impact in our lineup starting opening day is Mitch Garver, Mitch Haniger, and Luke Raley. And later in this video, I'm also going to go into something sent in by one of you fans, D-Train, over on Twitter. He basically did a whole spreadsheet on predictions of how many games each player is going to play this season for the Mariners. And I kind of want to just go over that with you guys, but I'll do that later in the video. But for me personally, I know some of you may disagree. I personally believe the three guys that they added are quality players. I think they all have a good track record in their own way. But again, the biggest problem that stands out is how many games can these players actually play. So let's start with the big name coming back to Seattle, which is Mitch Haniger. Mitch Haniger was great during his time in Seattle and had a really big breakout year back in 2021 where he had 39 home runs. But the biggest problem is since 2021, Mitch has played in 57 games back in 2022 and only 61 games last season. So again, the huge issue isn't whether Mitch Haniger will be able to perform at a high level, which it might be because he really hasn't played that many games since his breakout season in 2021. But the question is really how many games will his body allow him to play? And last season he got hit by a pitch, so it's kind of hard to kind of hold that against him because obviously it was just a freak accident and he was out for a long period of the season. But we do also have Dom Canzone out there, who I do think deserves a solid shot to play right field, who can kind of split this time with Mitch if he does get hurt or just in general so Mitch's body can have a rest. And now moving on to the other Mitch. So Mitch Garver has played 7 full seasons in the major leagues, but has only played in over 100 games in one of those seasons, where he played 103 games in his second season in the league. Again though, Mitch Garver is a quality bat to have in our lineup. In the 7 seasons he's played, he's posted over a 138 WRC plus 3 times, which is insane. And obviously the other seasons where his WRC plus was down, he didn't play a lot. One season he only ended up playing 23 games. So to me, the true question isn't, is Mitch Garver good enough to be an everyday player in the Mariners lineup? The question is, will he be able to play over 100 games? Having Mitch hopefully in the DH spot every day kind of is a little bit less wear and tear on his body. And to be honest, unless we desperately need him to catch, I wouldn't even put him in the catching spot. It's way too risky, and I truly want to see what this guy can do playing over 100 games. So Mitch and Mitch truly do have a long history of not playing in a lot of games during their career due to how injury prone they really are. And now moving on to a little bit about Luke Raley. Luke Raley played in his first full season with the Rays last season, where he did pretty well. He struggled a little bit in the second half, but he had a really hot first half. But the one thing that kind of scares me about Luke Raley's situation right now is he's expected to play in a lot of games this season. And don't get me wrong, I would love for him to play in as many games as he possibly can as long as he's producing. But for a guy coming into his second full season in the major leagues, you are asking a lot of him to hopefully be able to play over 140 games and left. Or who really knows where he might have to play if other injuries occur, but he is very versatile in that aspect. So truly, the only thing that really scares me about these players is 1, you're relying on a guy in his second year to go out and play over 140 games, and 2, you're relying on very injury-prone players to hopefully go out and play over 100 games as well. So truly, the number one problem for the Seattle Mariners right now is how injury-prone this lineup really is. And while some of you may disagree with me, the quality of player is really there. Again, it's just a matter of hoping that they can go out and play a full season. So the next thing I want to talk about with you guys is what D-Train had sent to me or posted on my Twitter. And it's basically his Excel sheet on how many games each Seattle Mariner will play this upcoming season. And I had asked him where he had got these numbers from, and it's kind of just something he put together based on prior facts, prior seasons, etc. So mind you, it is just a prediction, but at the end of the day, I do think it's pretty accurate, and it's very possible this is the total number of games that these Seattle Mariners can play in. So I'm going to put it up on the screen right now, and let's go through it. So starting with JP, he has JP DHing in 3 games and playing shortstop at 155 for a total of 158 games, which is definitely possible. Knock on wood, JP has not really been injury prone and has played in a lot of games in his career. Next, we have Julio, where he has Julio in the DH spot for 5 games and playing center field for 154, totaling 159 games. Again, knock on wood, but this is also very possible. Julio has played in 2 full seasons for us now. So this is where things are going to get a little bit interesting. He has Mitch Garver in the DH spot for 104 games and catching for 22 games, for a total of 126 games. Which, D-Tran, I pray that this is true. I hope that Mitch Garver can play in 126 games for us. I think he really will make a difference if he does play. Next, we have Luke Raley, where he has 10 games at DH, 30 at first base, 88 in left field, and 8 games in center, for a total of 136 games. This, I think, is very realistic. I just had discussed with you guys, they have an expectation of Luke Raley playing in over 140 games, most likely. So I don't think this is unrealistic, and hopefully he can just keep performing the way he was last year and even have a better second half as well. Next, he has Ty France playing 10 games at DH and 132 at first base, totaling for 142 games. I think this is also very realistic. Ty France really hasn't had that many injuries in his career. He does get hit by a lot of pitches, so maybe that might take him out of a few games, but I think 142 games is pretty solid for Ty. Next, he has Mitch Haniger playing 10 games at DH, 12 in left field, and 80 games in right field for a total of 102 games. Another one, I hope Mitch Haniger could play in over 100 games this season. I do think Dom Canzone is going to get a solid chance to play in over 50 games this year. So if we can get 102 games out of Mitch, I will take that any day of the week. Next, he has Dom Canzone for 10 games at DH, 70 in right field for a total of 80 games. I think this is realistic. I don't think Dom Canzone is going to get a full chance to play in a position and be an everyday player, but I do think he will play in about half the games, maybe a little bit less. Next, he has Josh Rojas playing 100 games at second base and 30 at third base for a total of 130 games. And his counterpart, Luis Urias, 20 games at second base and 120 at third base for a total of 140 games. Whether we like it or not, Josh Rojas and Luis Urias are going to be playing in a lot of games this season, unless they go out and acquire a third baseman or a second baseman like Jorge Polanco. But I do believe Josh Rojas should be an everyday player. I think he's good enough, and I think he's very comfortable in Seattle to play. Luis Urias, going back and kind of looking at his year 2021 and 2022, I do feel much more comfortable with him. But again, it's kind of a long shot to kind of see how he performs. And of course, I want to see him perform well because I want to see all of them perform well. I think this is pretty realistic. Maybe Luis Urias playing a little less games than 140, but we'll see. Then he has our backup catchers, Sebi and Hunt, where they're going to play 30 games at catcher, and that's about it for the two of them. Cal's going to own most of catching, and if he's not, then you'll have Sebi and them playing a few games, and maybe Mitch catch as well. But again, we really don't want to see Mitch behind the plate and risk that injury. Next, he has Dylan Moore playing 42 games at second, 12 at third, 7 at shortstop, and 20 games in left for a total of 81 games. I personally think this might be a little high for Demo, considering we have some guys and we're hoping they do play in a lot more games. I think this might be a little bit high. I could see him maybe playing in about 50 to 60 games this season, and kind of doing just his usual platoon or kind of just helping guys with rest days. Then he has Sam Haggerty playing in 30 games in left, which is realistic. I don't think Sam's going to get a lot of playing time this season. And lastly, he has Marlowe and Deloach playing a total of 12 games in left and 12 games in right. I really don't know if we're going to get to see Deloach this year or how many times we'll see Cade up in the majors, but I think this is pretty realistic. I don't really see them getting tons of playing time. So overall, I think this is a pretty accurate list and kind of very hopeful, because I do hope that Mitch and Luke and all of them can play in this many games, because I think we'll be much better when they're in the lineup that consistently. So shout out D-Train for letting me see this and letting me use it in a video. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think and how many games you think each player may play in. As fans, we should hope they play in as many as possible. But again, we don't know because it's a very injury-prone lineup. Anyway, I hope you guys did enjoy the video, and we will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.